Hello and welcome to Property Development Institute. I'm Steve Chandler, and today I'd like to take you through a proposal that I had a young gentleman who's starting out in property development send me, inquiring about whether or not he should do a project. Now, I just wanted to share with you what his thoughts were and take you through it in an Excel spreadsheet to give you an understanding of what he was looking at and the response that I provided him. So what I'm going to do is share a spreadsheet with you so you can have a look at the numbers as we talk through this. I'll just read a brief description of what the gentleman sent to me so that you can get an understanding of where he's coming from. So he wants to start a property development project. He's looking to do a renovation of a house. So a buy, renovate, sell of a house, and he's saying it fits within his budget, so that's obviously a very good start. So he's looked at the costs and said, okay, this is for me. So it's in a suburb close to home. One of the things I always say to people is, if you're going to get started with a property development project, stick to something that's really close to your home. And the reason I say that is that you will understand your area better than some other area. And if you can understand your area, you'll know what the better streets are and the better parts of the suburb and where it's an easy walk to public transport or to a park or close to a school, all those sort of information, pieces of information that we need to know as property developers to be able to secure the value in what we are intending to develop. So he's picked a suburb. That's good. He says that not long ago that suburb was really hot, and what he's talking about there is that prior to the recent increase in interest rates, you have a look at the date that this video was made on and you'll understand that this is a time when we went from our historically low interest rates to starting to ramp up, and with the explosion in inflation as well. So he's saying it used to be really hot, so everyone was, sort of buying these properties. He said nothing's selling for less than $1.4 million. So great. Okay, so $1.4 million is sort of the entry level, if you like. So he's understood that. And he said, I see this as an opportunity. And he was seeking my insight as to what he may be able to do here. So his intention was, and I'll type this straight into the spreadsheet here, he was going to purchase the property at $1,050,000. So let's just make this fit. Might just pull that out a bit, make this a bit larger. We might make this column all in dollars and cents and get rid of the cents, just make it round numbers. So that was his acquisition number. He said he was then going to spend, I'll use his words, between $100,000 and $150,000. So let's assume $150,000. Now, he said it was going to be 6 months to undertake the project, and he was going to put it back on the market or sell it for $1,400,000. Now, according to what he's put here is, we've got a total then of, let me do my magic with putting some numbers here. We're going to say we're going to spend this much money, 1.2. We're going to sell it for 1.4, and theoretically our profit is therefore our 1.4 less our costs. So theoretically he's looking for a $200,000 profit, and if we look at that as a percentage, so we'll just make this a percentage, he's saying he wants to make 200,000 on expenditure of 1.2 million. So he wants to make 16.67% profit. So, and he wants to do that in 6 months. Not bad money if you can do it. So what I went back to him with was a number of questions. I said, on his purchase up here, I said to him that basically to do a buy, renovate, sell, you actually have to buy the property. Whereas in development, if we're going to do townhouses or something larger where we need a council approval or local authority approval, what we actually need to do is option a property so we don't have to pay for it up front, because then we've got a lot of money out the door right from day one. And it means we've got to get a return on our money from the beginning through to the end. So it does change the way that we can determine what our return on equity actually is. Note that this profit margin here of 16.67% is a return on cost, because we've said we want to make 200,000 on $1.2 million. So that's what we're doing there. So I went back to him and said, okay, you have to purchase the property. So that was straight out, he has to buy it. But I did say that you've got to do your due diligence. You have to be aware that you're going to pay, taxes on the purchase. You're going to pay commissions. Like if someone's introduced you to the property, you may have to pay what we call a procurement fee for finding it. Due diligence is the key one. Architect, perhaps. Town planner, if you were doing something here, it's just going to be a reno, don't need that. You might have to get a council approval for your proposed renovation, but when we're looking at only spending 150,000, it's unlikely that that would be a council approval that's necessary. This is probably just a cosmetic. If you're going to paint the outside of the building or do some landscaping or change fences, you may need an authority approval. And I always suggest, as part of your due diligence, find out if you do. It's very, very important. So then his costs. So I asked him a few things, council rates, water rates, land tax, what taxes, what holding costs, cost of your mortgage. You've got an application fee, you're going to get a mortgage, so you need the funding for that. Generally, when you're doing a renovation type project, the financier, your bank, is going to look at your ability to repay. So they're not going to do capitalized interest. So in other words, they won't roll the interest over. You're going to have to meet the interest on a monthly basis. So you're going to have to have an income. So without that income, you won't be able to borrow the money. So those type of things. What consultants do you need for this project? That's very important. Complying development. In some locations, you can do a complying development. In other locations, you have to get a development approval. So there's a few different things you have to look at there. And what are the costs for everything? So adding all that up, is $150,000 actually enough for the project? The 6-month turnaround, fantastic. You acquire the property in the 6 weeks, 4 to 6 week settlement period between when you exchange your contract and when you actually become the owner. In various locations, that differs dramatically. Again, it's up to you what you do with that time. Once you've exchanged that contract and there's no getting out of it, I'd be going and getting quotes and things like that, getting ready to get started. I'd be you've already talked to your consultants about what needs to be done, and you would engage them to start doing all that so that the day that you become the owner, you can virtually start your project. So manage your time really, really quickly, manage your time really effectively. That's really critical. And when you've finished the project, you've got to put it on the market. So you've got to prepare your sales and marketing documentation. So all of your marketing collateral, that we call it. Photographs. Your property has to be finished to be able to take photographs, to be able to sell it. And that all takes time. So completed project, then a couple of weeks later, you've got your marketing collateral. That's 2 dead weeks. And then you've got to, whether it's an auction campaign or whether it's an expression of interest or whether it's simply for sale, you put it out there, and within 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, I don't know, you've got to know your market. How long will it take to sell your property? So when you look at that 6 months that they had here, is that enough time for everything? Right now, as we speak, there's a shortage of skilled labour in Australia. So therefore, it's very difficult for us to actually be able to build quickly. I would suggest that 6 months is probably not an adequate time frame for everything that this project could actually come up with. There's quite a number of questions, that I went back with a few other additional questions. One was, what's your return on cost? Well, we've got that there. And then it was, what's your return on equity? Because when we do all of these things, I'll just type that into here. Return on equity. One of the things that we always look at is not so much what the profit margin is on the project, but it's what the profit margin is on the money that we put in. So what are you actually getting on return? So for example, you put your money in the bank. You put $100,000 in the bank. If interest rates that the bank's handing out for a term deposit are 2%, you make 2% on the money that you put in. What we're saying here is on the money you put in, what's your return? So if, for example, he was to put $400,000 in and he was to make $200,000 in profit, that's a 50% return over the time frame of when he put his money in and when he got it out. So those are the type of things that we're really interested to know, because that's your comparison. The profit margin, the return on cost, which is this, we call it ROC, the return on cost is very, very different to the return on equity. So they're two very different things. The other thing I asked for was, well, has he done a feasibility study? So telling me these numbers and saying, I think it will be this and be that, you need to have done your research and have a documented feasibility. Now, I don't suggest for a house renovation that you need to go to the extent of doing a cash flow, which is the most detailed form of feasibility, but you would certainly need to do, in my view, a static feasibility, at an absolute minimum static feasibility. So that would allow for everything that you've got to put into a project. Now, that to me is a critical aspect for people to get started when you do start due diligence, making sure that when you've got this purchase price of $1,050,000, the question is that $1,050,000 inclusive of all of the taxes, your due diligence, your legal conveyancing fees, etc. So for me, I would allow, if it's not, then in my location, if I was buying a property of that nature, of that thing, it's probably about 7 to 10% of the purchase price. Now, I'm not saying just put 10%, I'm not saying just put 7. You need to know, you need to find out what the taxes, the due diligence costs, the legal fees, the conveyancing, what they all cost in that purchase price. The money that you're going to spend, you've got to have a scope of works. What are you going to do? You're going to put a new kitchen in with new white goods, new appliances. You're going to put new tiles, new flooring. In the bathroom, what are you doing? Are you going to just spray over the top of the existing tiles to re-enamel them? Are you going to rip it all out and replace it? Those type of things you've got to know. What are you going to do with the windows? Are they still in a good condition? Are they timber? Are you going to, strip them back and repaint them? The walls, what are you going to do to the walls? Same thing. Is there rising damp? Do you have to stop the dampness before you repaint? Polished timber floorboards, carpet. What sort of carpet are you going to put in? Does a property sell with polished timber floorboards? What is the need that the market has? What are they going to take as value? What's good value and going to get you a good reward? These are all the things outside, landscaping, fencing. So if you're going to do anything, do good landscaping if you're going to buy, renovate, sell a home, because landscaping sells. First impression, you walk up to a property, beautiful, painted fence, nice driveway, beautiful planting, gardens. those type of things. It's first impressions count. The outside of the building looks good when someone rocks up in their car and goes, wow, I can imagine living there. Then they go inside, and as long as it's clean and functional, that's all you need. It's that wow factor at the beginning because they've arrived going, I can live in this. Those are the sorts of things that actually lead us to being able to set our budgets and then knowing what we can sell for. So remember, you must always know what your revenue is. If you get your revenue wrong, you're in trouble unless you underestimate what it is. But if you overestimate by 200,000, you're gone. You've done all this for nothing. So I hope that that has been helpful for you. It really is a a trial and error type scenario, so that when you do get started, don't start with a massive project unless you've got a mentor working with you, someone who's been there and done that. Because it's critical that if you're going to make a mistake, make a little one. Make a mistake on a small project, but you're going to get massive learning from your project, even if it's a small one. So I hope that's been helpful for you. The gentleman here, he's looking at further things. He's doing more research. I hope he's successful. We will find out in due course. So on that, I'll wrap up. If you have any questions, please feel free, drop me an email and to developer@propertydevelopmentinstitute.com. Visit the website. We've got the contact us form there as well. And I look forward to perhaps meeting you at one of our courses in due course. Thank you kindly.